Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and thank you for this opportunity for this interview. My name is Shabbir Hassanali. I currently live in the United Kingdom, and I'm a software engineer. I'm also what I like to call an Islamic student. Some people call me an Islamic scholar, I've studied for some time in the Islamic seminary in Qom. So moving on to your questions, which are of course very important. The first question is, why is it so hard to make peace in this region? Well, the biggest obstacle to peace in this region is the way that the American hegemon continues to support and enable the Zionist entity. Peace can only be had when justice is restored. To restore justice, you would have to remove the Zionist regime, have a full-on referendum from all of the people, especially the people who have been exiled, the Palestinians who now live in the diaspora across the world. They need to have a full referendum, regardless of their religion. They can be Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or other. And they need to decide a system of government themselves. This is the only way you can have peace. As you say in your next question, that many peace plans have been suggested, but unfortunately none of them have worked, and of course none of them will work, because the basic premise of peace is justice. If someone has stolen a property from you, and when someone comes along to arbitrate, to try and make peace between the two of you, if that person, that so-called independent person, comes along and says to the criminal, look, you keep this stuff that you've stolen, and tells you that you're the bad guy, this doesn't make sense. This is illogical. It doesn't have any rationality. Of course, the Americans will promote this. The British will promote this, for the simple reason that, first of all, if you look at America, America has done exactly this with regard to how it's treated and how it's dealt with the Native Americans, and the bloody history of Britain across the world, and how it abused and murdered and massacred people, including, let's not forget, the crimes it did against against Iran and against India. These are issues that will prevent Britain and America from ever wanting justice, because if today there is justice for the Palestinians, that will then make people ask questions about, what did the Americans do? Okay, we need to have justice now for the Native Americans. If there is justice for the Palestinians, then tomorrow people are going to start asking questions about the British and the French and the Belgians and the Dutch and the Spanish and all of these other people. And on top of that, you have the other issue, that why are these crazy and illogical plans suggested? They're suggested because the Zionist lobby has infected everything. Every part of international law, if you like, is run and controlled and manipulated by elements that are loyal to or subservient to the Zionist entity. As a result, nothing happens, nothing gets done which is fair. And when there is a momentum, there is someone who is talking about justice, real justice, like, for example, you had Mr. Jeremy Corbyn over here in the UK, the Zionists openly, by their own admission, turn around and jeopardize his chances for being elected by lying, by manipulating, by using the media, by generating lies, by saying, oh, he's anti-Semitic, oh, he's a communist, oh, he's this, he's that. Habibi, they make up all of these lies, and unfortunately, the ignorance and the real ignorance of the population of the world, this is the reason why such Zionist and other lobbies can get away with duping and manipulating and lying to the people, unfortunately. So the only real logical solution for this crisis is a referendum, like I've said, and like has been said and was recommended by Imam Khamenei, may Allah protect him. A referendum where every Palestinian, every person who has been displaced, is allowed to decide, regardless of religion, be they Muslim, Christian, Jewish, etc., they are given this opportunity to decide what type of government they will have in Palestine, all of Palestine, not just, this tiny little piece of Gaza, or what they want to give in terms of this Jared Kushner rubbish, this so-called deal of the century, which is a stillborn pile of rubbish for all of Palestine. This is what the referendum needs to be for. This is very, very important. You then ask, of course, how can the Palestinian people themselves work to make this referendum a reality and move away from the decision-making of the so-called superpowers? Well, first of all, the Palestinians have to unite amongst themselves, and this is happening. Secondly, especially in this time where the coronavirus is ravaging America and Britain and all of these other countries, and the world is essentially crippled. The economies of the world are crippled. All of the hegemonic powers, like the United States, like Britain, like France, like all of these that have been supporting and nurturing the Zionists, all of these entities are struggling for their own survival. Their economies are in a shambles. They are destroyed. They will have to worry about their own people. They don't have the bandwidth and the energy to worry about the Palestinians or the Israelis. The Israelis might leverage their lobbies, as they are, to try and continue to get support and, carte blanche for doing whatever they need to do or want to do. And sadly, because of the ignorant fools that are currently in power in the UK and the US, they, of course, write blank checks for them and let them get away with murder. The Palestinians need to use this time where the Western powers are so weak and broken to educate both themselves and the population of the world. They need to come out and stand firm. They need to explain to people why, if today it's the Palestinians, tomorrow it could turn around and be the Canadians. What is to stop Trump from tomorrow, or the US rather, from tomorrow, turning around and saying, okay, we don't like the way, Mexico or Canada is dealing with us, and we need their land, and khalas, go away and occupy them. They're built on theft. America is a country built on theft. It is stolen land, which is why it supports the Israelis so much, because that is also stolen land. The Israelis stole Palestine from the Palestinians. The myth the Israelis have tried to perpetrate that the land was empty, this is a lie. Anyone with half a brain who studies, who reads, knows that Palestine was a flourishing country. And the Israelis came along and not only committed countless acts of heinous terrorism, they made up lies and they depopulated Palestine in the minds of people, saying that, oh, this was just desert, this was nothing. And the British helped them. And this is one of the reasons why the British are today suffering. And they will suffer. Because, what goes around does come around. There is a higher power looking after these things. So the Palestinians need to educate each other. They need to educate the population. They need to form lobby groups. They need to really work hard, harder than they've ever had to work before. And they don't need to use guns or anything. They need to use pens. Pens are what the weapon is. Pens, social media, the internet. They need to really, really educate people. And, of course, those people who support the Palestinians must support them in these activities. But above all, the Palestinians need to become united. The Palestinians need to realize that things like Oslo and all of this, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas needs to realize that Oslo and all of this, khalas, it's gone. Al-Fatiha. Just like some people need to realize that JCPOA is gone and Al-Fatiha, the same way Oslo is gone. Khalas, Al-Fatiha, move on. These deals with America in the equation, they will never happen. They will never work. Because America is a dishonorable party. It will never honor any deal. So the Palestinians need to do this. Those people who support the Palestinians, we need to support the Palestinians in this. We need to educate people. And we need to move the decision-making away from these superpowers, so-called, and to the people. If we can get 1 billion people to realize and accept and be ready to stand for Palestine across the world, do you really think there is anyone who can stop the Palestinians from having a referendum and enacting the results of that referendum? If the Zionists are so honorable and so much of a democracy, as we are told, they're the only democracy in the Middle East. What utter rubbish. If they're such a wonderful democracy, why are they so scared of a referendum? Why are they so petrified of a referendum? So moving on to your final question. As you know, the last Friday of the holy month of Shahr Ramadan is marked as the Day of Quds by Imam Khomeini, Quddis Sirruhu Sharif. And, generally we have Quds Day rallies all across the world. But this year, what should be the slogan for resolving this conflict? Well, first of all, this year we're not, unfortunately, due to this coronavirus that has been unleashed upon the world, there will generally not be rallies, as it were. But I think it's actually a blessing in disguise, because during this week, the last week of Shahr Ramadan, from Nakba on the 15th of May to the Day of Quds, which I believe is the 22nd of May 2020, we have an opportunity to tell people, to educate people online. People should be writing articles, people should be giving interviews, people should be talking. The revolutionary television channels, they should be discussing this. YouTube channels should be created, social media channels should be created to discuss this and to educate people, so that even if people don't see this stuff right away, they come across it over time, because this momentum needs to be retained. We need to keep moving forward and educating the people about the situation in Palestine and about this solution. And, the solution, the real solution, it's a very easy solution. And I'm going to tell you what this solution is by means of a very simple sentence. That this solution, and I believe this with all my heart, I believe that all those who have a legitimate stake in the territory of Palestine, including the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews, should choose their own system of governance by means of a general, open, free, and fair referendum. And this is what the push should be for the Day of Quds. All of the Western powers, everyone talks so much about democracy. Of course, the veneer of democracy is gone, but this they talk about it still very much. And this idea of a referendum is the pinnacle of democracy. It is the people deciding, like I've said, all of those who have a legitimate stake in the territory of Palestine. That includes everyone who has been exiled in the last 70 years. Everyone who is ethnically from Palestine. They need to have a right, regardless of whether they're Muslim, Christian, or Jewish. They have a right to have a referendum. They should have a referendum. And using that referendum, the results of that referendum, of course, they should choose their own system of government. And this will then be accepted by everyone for all of Palestine, not for small portions of Palestine, and have Palestine divided up like some sort of Swiss cheese. This is an insane solution. So, inshallah, this happens. The Quds Day rallies, of course, they're not happening for the most part this year, but people should be online, people should be discussing in their family groups. I know people nowadays, especially in Shahr Ramadan, they have a lot of group video calls, group discussions on WhatsApp, on Zoom, on Skype, on all of these things. People should really, really be promoting and discussing this idea of Palestine, at least in this last week, and educating each other, because the biggest problem we have is education. People are not aware of the situation of the Palestinians. People don't understand that the biggest reason America supports it is because America is doing the same thing and has done the same thing in America, essentially. The Europeans did the same thing in America as they've done in Palestine. They came along, they pillaged the land, they killed the people, and they stole the land. This happened in America, this happened in countless places by means of what the British Empire was. And of course it happened in Palestine. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a privilege and an honor. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.